Godzilla vs. Kong was a smash hit, so naturally, I decided to go back and revisit all of the older Godzilla kaiju films, a lot of which I have not seen, but I've seen enough to know that I love these kinds of films. I've seen Godzilla 2000, which I thought was great. Not my favorite. I don't think it's anywhere near my favorite, actually. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. And when I was a kid, I've seen quite a few of the Toho films when they would air on television, and I always liked those. In spite of my fear of moths, and was never a fan of Mothra, but I'm not going to get too much into that. The recent American films have been good. Definitely not the best out of all of the Godzilla arcs. Shin Godzilla is a fantastic movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of other people did, but I'm going to have to revisit that one soon. Perhaps I'll do a review on that as well. So today I'm going to be talking about Godzilla Mothra... Godzilla Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All-Out Attack. That took me 4 takes to say correctly. And this is arguably... it's not arguable. This is the best of the Millennium series of films, which started with Godzilla 2000 and ended with Godzilla Final Wars. This is my personal favorite era of Godzilla. Of course, I haven't gotten too much into the films that came out in the 90s, but I really like the scope that a lot of these Millennium films have due to their better special effects and more modern approach to the Godzilla mythos. This film absolutely nails the sense of scale. There's a lot of digital effects that just serve to spice up the practical suits and the miniatures, and while a lot of times the digital effects look awful and dated, and it's never distracting. Even if it looks bad, you're like, oh, that's adorable. With that said, I absolutely must address the suits in this film. They look so good. Some of the best that have ever been in the kaiju genre. And with that, I would like to have a moment of silence for all of the poor guys that were in those suits and had to be around fire and just generally tossed around the soundstage for the director's amusement. I can only imagine the hell that those people went through inside of those suits. But this is another reason why I prefer the Millennium films so much, because the suits just look so cool. In the older films, you have some that look goofy, some that look good, but really, these early 2000s films are where they really started to hone that. And that's mostly due to a lot more modern design philosophies coming in and sort of improving these older designs. And I love it. I really do love it. So this film is a sequel to the 1954 original. A lot of these Millennium films are. Most of them sort of ignore the other Godzilla films and they just pick up where 1954 ended. And I don't mind that, though a part of me really, really wishes that they would stick to a single story through these. And some of them are connected, but in almost all cases they're not. At least not in a significant or believable way. But here, Godzilla is menacing again. This guy is... You don't want to fuck with Godzilla in GMK, okay? He absolutely destroys in this movie. He does not care. So many people die. It's borderline like a slasher movie at points. And then you've got Mothra, who looks as disgusting as she's ever looked. And King Ghidorah he's King Ghidorah. He's cool. He's always gonna look cool. He's a fucking 3-headed dragon. I think the directing in general is a real high point of this film. This one being directed by Shusuke Kaneko. He directed 2 of the Death Note live-action films, not the Adam Wingard one, and a handful of the Gamera films. With a lot of these movies, the directing isn't very notable, I guess, but in this case, yeah. When you're brought down to the human scale, it feels like a step above everything else in the Godzilla franchise. And there's an insane amount of collateral damage in this film. There's a lot of scenes where these obnoxiously mean and just horrible, despicable characters get introduced, and then one of the kaiju will show up and just totally fucking murder all of them. And those are some of my favorite parts of the film. There's like this group of kids who are like, I hate dogs, and they're like gonna fucking kill this dog, and you're like, Jesus Christ, and then they die immediately. But the film also sets up likable characters. One of the most memorable parts of this movie is this poor girl is in a hospital bed with like a broken leg, and she sees Godzilla coming, and she's like screaming and screaming, and Godzilla walks by right by the window, and she's like, oh, thank goodness. And then his fucking tail comes and just BAM! It's one of many oh shit moments in this movie. Godzilla does not care, and it makes him terrifying, like truly, truly terrifying. He's a mean motherfucker. And that's the thing, in this movie, the kaiju feel so like mystical and big in a way that a lot of the other films don't really capture or focus on. There's the scene. It's a bit dark now that I think about it. This guy's about to hang himself in the woods, and he like falls through the ground, and he just sees King Ghidorah's head frozen in ice in this cave, and I'm like, holy shit, this is nuts. But I have to warn, don't watch the dub of this. Don't watch it. It's awful, because I watched it twice in the past few days. I watched it on Amazon Prime, where they do not have a sub version of this. And it is so fucking bad. Like, someone will be like super scared, and you can see like on their face their acting is just like really convincing, but then the dub's like, oh no, Godzilla. And it took me out of the movie every time. I bought it on Blu-ray, this adorable little double feature with Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which is the only way you can purchase these movies, sadly. But if you want to see the original Japanese audio with subtitles, this is the way to do it. It's like watching a totally different movie. Tonally, it's a lot different, because a lot of this sort of awkward cheesiness happened in the dub, where I was like, okay, I can't really take too much of this seriously. But when you're watching the Japanese version, it's like so intense, and the performances are so good that it sort of pisses me off that the original versions aren't the more widely available ones. I really think somebody needs to get on this, because it drives me nuts. Even in the English dub, the characters are really good in this film. Like, a lot of issues that people have with the Godzilla films, especially the American ones, is that the human stuff is boring, and it sort of just serves to just detour from the giant monster fighting and all of the action going on. And I didn't really get that in this movie at all. In fact, the character stuff is really, really goddamn good. The lead, Yuri, she's this really charming reporter character who does like these sensationalized sort of tabloid pieces. And there's this nice scene of them in the woods, and they throw a rock in the water behind her. She's like, oh, monster. And I like that stuff. So it's a lot of fun to follow her around, because her as a character, she wants to do like real stories. She wants to do stuff justice and be respectful to the people that she's covering. And the higher ups basically are like, fuck you, just do what we tell you to do. And she's like, no. So she's like really on this Godzilla thing. The whole movie is about her documenting the monster fights and like the terror and destruction and everything. And I really liked it, because she's funny, she's a charming character, and all of the cast around her are equally as funny. It's kind of makes me sad when you look at movies like King of the Monsters and you're like, okay, just get to the fight already, please. But it's not all super lighthearted, which thankfully that stuff is in there. But for the most part, this movie's honestly pretty dark, and it's not afraid to get serious. Like I mentioned with the man attempting suicide in the woods, and there's that scene where the girl gets killed in the hospital. There's gravity with it, and the levity that comes from the characters is sort of like a break from that. It feels human, and it feels real in a way that's monumentally more compelling than a lot of other kaiju films I've seen. A lot of the themes in the movie harken back to the original a bit. They mention that the reason Godzilla is just fucking murdering everyone is because all of the trauma inflicted during the Pacific conflict in World War II is sort of being brushed off by the Japanese people because they just want to forget about it, whether that be war crimes committed by Japan or the bombs being dropped. Godzilla is there to serve as a reminder. He's like, no, you're not allowed to forget. And I really love that. It reminded me a lot of the original and Shin Godzilla, where it's just like Godzilla is this unstoppable, despicable force, and there's nothing that we can really do to fend him off. And then later on in the film, it gets into all these just all-out brawls, and it is so much fun. It's more of what I wanted from Final Wars. I felt Final Wars was very like 1 minute of action, cuts to the next action scene, and it was just like nonstop, and it got draining after a while. But this, it has a great build up to that first fight, and then in the end, you're just getting this massive, just all-out battle, and you care about the characters, so you don't want them to get killed in the battle. So it was a really great back and forth that's been sorely missing from a lot of these films. Now to talk about that first fight scene. So the first kaiju that makes an appearance on screen is Baragon, who looks just so adorable. He's like the sweetest looking kaiju of all time. Not only do I love his suit, but just the way he waddles around, and you're really rooting for him because you know he's there to stop Godzilla. Godzilla's fucking everything up, and this guy's there. He's like, all right, I'm gonna... No, he's not gonna do anything. Because in that first fight, Godzilla just totally obliterates him. I was laughing so hard. I was like, no! No! Because Godzilla fucking shoots him with his atomic breath, and there's this comically huge explosion on the poor guy. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was another one of those sort of holy shit moments in this movie. This movie's full of them. It's got a perfect balance between everything you want and what you'd expect in a Godzilla or kaiju film. It's the perfect jumping off point for this type of movie. And even after watching more of them, it's probably still going to be the best one you see. So I can't recommend this enough. If you watch Godzilla vs. Kong and you want to jump into other kaiju films, I think this is perfect. Don't watch the fucking dub. Watch the sub if you can. I can guarantee that you'll be impressed. It's a ton of fun. I can't recommend it enough, and it's just become one of my new favorite films of all time. I'm going to be watching this thing all the time. So yeah, I'm probably going to be covering some more kaiju films here in the near future, so I guess stay tuned for that. And I'll leave my Letterboxd profile down in the description, so you can follow me on there and we can talk about movies or whatever. And yeah, I think that's all I have for today. I got an actual lighting setup, so I hope this video looks a little bit better than my last two, because I really do want to get serious about this and releasing videos regularly. So I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. I don't want to shill out to myself here, but I do want people to see these videos so that way I can improve, get criticism, advice, anything, or just general discussion about films. I love this stuff, and I want to do more, so hopefully I'll see you all in the near future. Thank you.